Hi, this is Dan Devlin for the Detective Dan Devlin Show, Honorable People, Honorable Nation. Welcome to our show. I hope you've been watching. Today, we're going to examine whether the truth really matters. In American society, currently, you have to ask that question because oftentimes it appears as though what's being dealt with doesn't resemble the truth whatsoever. And of course, we're talking about in the political and the social respect as a society and a nation. And today I want to talk about current events that have been really the major focus of the media in certain areas. And this goes to the idea of the truth. When people who are responsible for news programming, for example, refuse to cover things that may show their group that they're associated with in a bad light, it's easy for them not to cover those things. Just as surely, when something shows their people in a good light, they focus extensively on that. Is that being honest with the public? Is it being truthful? Is it giving them a true perspective of what we are as a society? Many of the things that we talk about, we look at the philosophical aspect of things. How does it affect society? What do we think about these things? And it's easy to dismiss them and say, well, they don't really matter. But when we get to the actual particulars of an issue, then all of a sudden, many people have very strong opinions. And today, most of us know, and of course we don't know exactly when you're going to be watching this programming, but in 2019, early 2019, we have an actor who claims that he was assaulted by two white, or what people would describe as white men, and they tied a rope noose around his neck, and supposedly he had some chemical, gasoline or some flammable liquid poured on him. And for a number of days, he was heralded as almost a hero in certain areas of the press. Many political figures jumped in his corner and, of course, condemned white people in general because they would do this to this actor who happens to be an individual of, as they say, a person of color. Appears to be of African American descent. He is also described as a homosexual. So, in his description of what occurred to him, he was beaten by these white individuals. They used language that exposed that they were against gays, people who are homosexuals, and they are against him because of his so-called race. And many of the politicians referred to it as almost a modern lynching of this young man. Now, this young man, whose name I will not use because he doesn't deserve to have any more exposure than exactly what I'm giving him, and I will not name him. And the reason that is so is because as it turns out, through law enforcement investigations and other sources, including some members of the news media, have uncovered facts that demonstrate that he paid two African American young men to beat him up, to put this noose around his neck, to do this in front of a camera so people would eventually be able to get that footage and see how he was abused. I would imagine, because I haven't seen the footage, if he's claiming that they were white men, they obviously had to position themselves so they couldn't see that they were young men of color, so to speak. And if sound was available, they could hear the racial and sexual slurs that were used against him. This appears as though it was a very well-planned fraud that created tremendous division among people in American society. Again, we have the racial overtones that would lend most people to believe that the so-called white people are abusing an African American gay individual. Now, this individual is already on a very prominent television program. And what we find out is that he orchestrated this because he felt, it appears, and I didn't do the investigation, so I'm going by the information that is out there now. How much of it is accurate? If it goes to trial, maybe that will all come out. But the young men who were responsible for this beating and cooperated with him in this hoax have come forward. They provided evidence to show what really happened, and they explained that they were paid by this individual to do these things and to say the things that he wanted said. This program is about whether the truth matters anymore. Everyone, and I have to applaud the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department for speaking so directly and passionately about his belief of the way that this was carried out and the motivation for doing so. He spoke passionately about the reality that resources were taken away from other people who needed law enforcement attention because they were investigating this horrific crime. And he did condemn the behavior of that one individual. So I applaud him for that, and they did the investigation, and it appears to be a very thorough investigation. Apparently, the truth does not matter to that individual who orchestrated this event. And it also does not matter to individuals who are actually candidates for the position of President of the United States. And with little information, they rushed to judgment because they want to be seen as the defender of the unfortunate, the African American community, the gay community. And rather than wait to hear what the facts were, they got on social media and they've spouted this mutual hatred for many of the people in the United States because this was, for them, a believable, hateful act perpetrated by, quote, white males. For people out there who are, especially in inner cities, of a minority group, I hope you see that these particular politicians, including Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and others, I only know one way to be with you, and that is to be as honest as humanly possible. And you need to start questioning why these people claim that they're on your side, and many of them have been in very influential, powerful government positions. Why have they not done the things necessary in order to change your lives for the better? I believe, and I think that you will see, because I trust that you're smarter than they give you credit for being. And I think that you will see that by providing you opportunities to live a better life, an honorable life. And you know our program is not just the Detective Dan Devlin show, but is honorable people, honorable nation. And to be honorable people, we have to be honest with each other. We have to care about the truth. And so, what I believe you need to do, and what I always try to do, is to sift through the information and find the truth. I truly believe that many, and I'll describe them as progressive, they like to use that term, individuals, many of whom are with the Democrat Party, really don't care much about you, other than your vote. And we've covered some of this before. But this is an example of this individual, this actor, who it appears as though he wanted a higher wage. And he felt as though if he had sympathy from the public, if he became more well known, if he was a hero, he would be paid more. I suspect that there is much more to the story than is available right at this point. I don't know whether he was influenced by others, but I do know that he knows that many people would run to his aid because of his victimhood, and he would be provided with many opportunities that he wouldn't have been provided before. And we know that this happens because if we see people who we know have lied, who cared nothing about the truth, who tried to encourage racial division, those people have been given platforms and through that the ability to make great amounts of money, even though it has been proven that they lied about the circumstances of their victimhood, for example. There are many examples of that. But you and I have a more important calling. And that is, whether it's from a religious perspective or simply a self-interest perspective, I trust that you're intelligent enough to be able to figure out who is really acting in your interest. This is not to say that all Republicans, for example, have your best interest at heart. Although I will say, I believe that many of them do, because they believe in the theory, or many believe in the theory, of rather than giving a man a fish, it's better to teach him how to fish so he can provide for himself for the rest of his life. And while it might seem great that people give us things without us actually earning them, that only lasts as long as the people in power have someone that they can take money from in order to give you the things that you have not earned. And when that happens, when they no longer can drain the resources from other people who have worked hard for those resources, then you'll find out how much they care about you. This is about, does the truth matter? It matters because I would say you matter. And if we don't go by the truth in dealing with you, how much do we respect you? How much do we care about you that we would have you believe lies? Those of you who know me know that I appreciate Scripture. I describe myself as a fundamentalist Christian, and that's my definition. It's not somebody else. You need to know what I mean by that. Simply because somebody else calls themselves that does not mean that I agree with their principles. But there are basics that we all would agree to and need to follow. In other programming, we've gone through that. We can agree that we don't want each other to harm the other. And we can say this is a standard that we want to live by. And if we make an agreement that that's the way we're going to behave and we stick to it, aren't we all better off? Injustice is a terrible thing. And many races, many nationalities have been persecuted over generations. But normally we see, historically, they rise above that. They try to deal with that injustice. They look for those who will stand with them. The American Revolution, the Civil War, other conflicts, oftentimes they're about one group feeling one way, another group feeling another, and because they can't agree, they wind up killing each other. It's been my experience, having been in war myself, having dealt with prisoners in a prisoner of war camp, you find that they're so close to what you are interested in your life that you have to ask yourself, why are we facing each other? And if they were not in a prisoner of war camp, they would be trying to kill me and I would be trying to kill them. This is insanity. And it often occurs because we're not interested in the truth. But when collectively, when you and I together care about that truth, and we're willing to understand people do make mistakes, and we look at the meaning of the words that they say, and we try to understand them from their point of view. Why? Because our objective should be to live together and accomplish the good things in life that we should all be trying to accomplish. I can guarantee I could have a room full of people who disagree on many things. But if we concentrate on fundamentals, it's normally my experience that most of those people, other than those who are set on dividing everyone for their own gain so that they can exploit the others, other than those few, most of the people see things pretty much the same. And they're willing to be tolerant of others as long as it doesn't infringe upon their existence or their rights and even obligations. I use the example of this individual who is an actor, and we can look at what is going to become of someone who perpetrates such a hoax that would encourage people to hate each other. It's a very, very serious thing. Oftentimes we don't look at it as serious. We say, well, no one was hurt. But I can guarantee across the country, some people have treated others wrongly as a result of what was being done with that particular incident. And still, now, those who I spoke about who rushed to judgment, who defended this young man and said how terrible it was that he was treated this way, called the fictitious attackers vicious names and suggested bad things happen to them. Those individuals have not come forward, the politicians in particular. They have not come forward and spoken to the facts that have been presented that show that this individual perpetrated this hoax himself. You know that I've literally preached we're the product of our decisions. And the decisions that you make, the decisions on who you choose to follow, will make all the difference in where we wind up in this country that I care so much about. And I hope you care so much about as well. There are going to be elections coming up in a little while. We've got some time. But I want you to carefully consider who is telling the truth about some of these issues and who really cares about you. You know, many of the individuals that I spoke about, the politicians, including Bernie Sanders, have spoken about giving so many things to people. And if we were Mr. Moneybags, who had a limitless amount of money, and we decided to go ahead and pay for the education of everyone, pay for everyone's health care, allow everyone who wanted to come into this country to just do so whenever they wished, that individual who had that kind of money may decide, I'm going to do this for my nation. But the money that it costs in order to do these things come from hard-working people. People often, and the people on what we call the left, the progressives, they think that it's easy to get the money from rich people. But anyone who is working out there knows that he likely has a job if he's not in government. He has it because some rich person started a company and poured in countless hours and much of his own money in order to build that company that provides a job and a living not only for those individuals who are employed there, but their whole families. So the socialist model is to say we all chip in our money, and then anyone who wants to do anything will have enough money to do it. Are there some basic services, health care? We could discuss that in particular. But we have a nation that has become people who are takers. We want to take from those who have and contribute nothing ourselves. Honorable people of an honorable nation will say, what can I contribute? I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to do what I can do in order to make our society better, and I'm willing to help. I'm willing to provide some of my funds in order to do that. But the government officials have no right to keep taking more and more money from myself and my family to give it to those who refuse to do anything. Now, I'm not telling you anything new. Many of you know that this is going on. Many of you know people who are like this, or you may be a person like that yourself. I'm asking for us as a society to take the honorable route. I think you're more valuable than that. And I think we need to set a standard. We need to hold people accountable so we all contribute to achieve mutual benefits. Not benefits for those who lie, like this actor, who try to create controversy, pain, suffering, and misery for his own benefit. But for those who are willing to work in society to make it better for us all. This is about, does the truth matter? My position is it does matter. And I think if you think about it, you'll agree. God bless you all. I hope you all have a fantastic day. And I hope you value the truth and you seek it always. For honorable people, honorable nation, I hope we can all work to achieve that goal. God bless you all.